Hello, welcome everybody to the ALPFA Leadership Summit. We're just going to wait another couple of minutes to have people trickle in, and then we'll get started. Hello, and welcome everybody to the ALPFA Leadership Summit. I'm very excited to welcome you all to our another ALPFA Leadership Summit for this year. If you guys haven't been to an ALPFA Leadership Summit before, welcome. And if you have, welcome back. I'm gonna start a little bit just by introducing what the ALPFA Leadership Summit is for those of you who don't know. So the ALPFA Leadership Summit is a well-rounded event that provides students and professionals with resources to strengthen and develop leadership skills and to grow their personal network. This year's ALPFA Leadership Summit theme is to enhance your Latino BRG to have more impact and through the 4 C's model. The 4 C's models are career, community, cultural, and commerce. And throughout the panel and throughout our leadership event summit, we're gonna go over and break it down step by step. Our event is today starting with the panel and then tomorrow with the career fair from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if you haven't had a chance to register for that, the link is still available. And if you haven't, please do so because it's gonna be really good knowledge for everybody. I would like to thank our presenting sponsors, BlackRock, thank you very much. Our gold sponsors, Cog Enterprise, UPS, and then our silver sponsor, Chick-fil-A, Country Financial, Mercedes-Benz, and our bronze sponsors, Assurance, KMPG, Robert Half, and Pivot. This event wouldn't be possible without your support. So thank you guys very much. And before we begin, I would just like to give you guys some house cleaning rules. If you guys make any posts on social media, make sure to hashtag ALPFA Summit ATL or follow us at alpha_Atlanta in our social medias. We'll be choosing 5 random winners to receive a $25 gift card. So make sure to be using those hashtags and follow us on our social media. And with that, you know, it wouldn't be a leadership summit if we don't talk about our National Hispanic Heritage Month. So Viva Latinos, you know, only because it's Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15 to October 15 doesn't mean that we have to stop celebrating us in 1 month. We have the whole year. You know, let's celebrate us every year, you know, because we are really the backbone of this economy. Let's see. I would like to now introduce, with great honor, our keynote speaker, Wendy Gutierrez. Wendy Gutierrez is Head of Client Experience Management Team in Atlanta for BlackRock, which partners with Institutional Client Business, Global Consultant Relations, and Financial Institutions Group. Her team aims to provide operational service excellence to clients across institutional channels and deliver a high quality client experience. Wendy also leads an effort to develop training program that elevates the level of client service across multiple tech operations functions. In addition, she is a member of the Atlanta leadership team and co-leads the Somos Latinx network in Atlanta. Prior to joining BlackRock in 2019, Wendy led the customer experience strategy efforts at Equifax, one of the largest customer credit reporting agency in the US. While there, she was responsible for the rollout of the company's first global customer experience measurement program that brought a consistent view to Equifax performance with its clients and allowed the company to track progress towards this strategy. Before joining Equifax, she served as a management consultant from 2017 to 2016 with North Highland, a mid-sized consulting firm where she led numerous cultural experience engagements for clients across a variety of industries and helped establish an CX practice. Wendy received a BA in International Relations from the University of Virginia and an MA in International Relations from Tufts Universities. and an MBA from New York University. Wow, that is amazing. A lot of education. Please welcome Wendy Gutierrez.
Thank you so much, Edward. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And yes, a lot of education. It was a lot of fun while I was at it. And oh my goodness, when you put it that way, I realized, wow, I was a student for a long, long time, wasn't it? But happy Hispanic Heritage Month to all. I'm thrilled to be here today. And I'm just thrilled to be here representing BlackRock. And we're happy to be partnering with ALPFA on this leadership summit. And to participate today, frankly, as a presenting sponsor, it's really our honor to be doing this. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about BlackRock and what our firm does, because I recognize that BlackRock is relatively new in Atlanta. We've only been in the Atlanta market for a couple of years. While we're well known in New York and other markets, we may not be as well known here in Atlanta. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about BlackRock. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. And then I want to go into really what the whole focus of this discussion is, which is about ERGs and the value that they bring to companies. So I want to devote a fair amount of time to that. So let's start with BlackRock. So BlackRock is a New York-based asset management firm, and we work both with institutions and with financial advisors. I happen to be on the institutional side, but we also have a retail side where we're working with financial advisors. And really the goal of BlackRock is to help more and more people achieve financial well-being. That is the purpose of our firm, and that is the crux of why we get up to go to work every day. Because at the end of the day, what we really do is we're benefiting pension funds, we're benefiting city employees, we're benefiting teachers, first responders. And it's that kind of that human impact that we have in the work that we do. That is why we're always excited to come to work and carry out our purpose. BlackRock was founded over 30 years ago in 1988, which really isn't that long, honestly, when you think about it. When we think of it that we're the largest asset management firm in the world, we really only have been around for a little bit over 30 years. And we have grown and we've evolved throughout the decades to match really the evolution of technology and to match the needs of our investors. So innovation, as you might guess, has really been at the core of our growth. And it really continues to be central to everything that we do every day. We are transforming the financial industry by applying concepts of long-termism and the concept of sustainability, and integrating an ESG lens throughout our active investment platform. And ESG, for those of you who may not be familiar with the terminology, ESG relates to environmental, social, and governance. And we have a lot of investment products that have that kind of focus area. Now, the BlackRock, as I mentioned before, BlackRock's Atlanta office opened 2 years ago a little bit over 2 years ago in early 2019. And it started with 4 employees. We are now getting to the fall of 2021. We now have about 500 employees in the Atlanta office. I was about employee maybe 150 when I started in September of 2019. So as you can see, we've grown tremendously, and that's even accounting for the fact that, of course, during COVID, we really had minimal hiring going on. So that's where we are now. We are poised to continue growing over the next few years, and really to bring more talent into our office, which is one of the innovation hubs for our firm. The Atlanta office represents all corners of our firm, from the investment and product side to technology to operations. It really is meant to be a microcosm of everything that BlackRock does, and have it represented here in Atlanta. Now, one of the things that really attracted me to BlackRock when I joined 2 years ago was that the Atlanta office has been firmly established with a culture of collaboration, connectivity, and community. And it really comes out in everything that we do. And it's that community focus that I'm particularly proud of. So our office in Atlanta has deployed over $1.5 million to our local organizations. Our employees in Atlanta have volunteered about 250 hours, and that's just in 2020 alone. 2021 has brought more. And members of our office leadership team, and I'm privileged to be on that team, serve on boards of 16 local nonprofits. So really, this is something that is at the core and at the heart of everything that we do. So we are very clear about, we have our day jobs to benefit BlackRock, but we also have our roles that are meant to be very active with the community. So it's a little bit about BlackRock, a little bit about me, if you'll indulge me. So as I mentioned before, I joined the firm almost exactly 2 years ago. September 30th, 2019 was my start date. But I have been a long-term resident of Atlanta. I've been here for a couple of decades, so I know the city fairly well. As Edward mentioned, I'm the Director of Client Experience Management, the team that's based in Atlanta for Client Experience Management. And that means that I'm overseeing a team of service professionals who work with our institutional clients, be they foundations, college endowments, insurance companies, large and mid-sized pensions, et cetera. And we really try to focus on serving their operational service needs. So my singular focus as the leader of that team is to ensure that our firm is delivering the best experience possible to our clients, and that the service that we're offering matches and exceeds what our clients expect of our firm. So that's my day job. But close to my heart really is my role as co-lead of the Somos Latin Network in Atlanta, because central to who I am is my Hispanic heritage. And I'm fortunate to be a co-lead of the Somos Latin Network with my friend and colleague, Carmen Garcia, and you'll be hearing more from her later on the panel. So why is my Hispanic heritage so central? Well, of course, it is part of who I am. It makes up everything that I am. My parents each came from Bolivia to the US as young adults in the late 1950s, came individually of each other. My dad came from the small town of Trinidad, which is a cattle ranching area in the northeast part of the country. And my mom from the opposite side of the country, the city of Oruro, which is in the Altiplano of Bolivia. And there's a bit of a rivalry between those two sides of Bolivia, similar to what you see here between the north and south of the US. It's kind of funny. But I often think about the courage that each of them had to come to the US back then on their own, traveling over 4,000 miles with the goal of finding better opportunities for themselves. And I admire their courage. I admire the courage of their mothers and of their parents to let them go that far and have the trust that they're going to be okay and that they're going to make their way in this world on their own. And at least at that point, my mom spoke a little English, having gone to an Anglo-American school in Oruro. My dad had absolutely no English whatsoever, so I can imagine how much more difficult his path was. And you know, they each had their struggles as immigrants, struggles that are too numerous to list here, but one that I will mention is shortly after arriving in the US, my father's sponsor family, because this is how it worked back in the 50s, was you would come in through a sponsor family. They encouraged him to enlist in the US Army. But given his non-existent English language skills, he was quite lost. He often tells us a story of how he would be sitting in a stadium in the beginning as he was being recruited, and he'll be sitting there with other recruits, being unaware of really what was going on around him. And all he could do really was stand up when everybody stood up, sit down when everybody sat down, and just hope that everything was going well. And the next thing he knew, he was sent to Schweinfurt, Germany for 2 years to serve with the army there. For those of you who don't know Schweinfurt, it is the US Army has had a large presence there for a long time, up until recently, actually 2014. And if his English was non-existent, well, I don't even know what to tell you about his German, because it certainly was not there. But somehow, being the pragmatist that he is, he muddled through those challenges, because he always had that goal of, I've come here for a purpose, and this is going to get me to that purpose of building a better life for myself. So eventually, he wound up going to school coincidentally here in Atlanta, and it's pure coincidence that I'm now in Atlanta and have been here for a while. It was certainly not, it was a very circuitous route where I ended up here. He got his undergraduate and master's degree at Georgia Tech in mechanical engineering. And for someone who came to the US with absolutely no knowledge of English, he actually did quite well, graduating magna cum laude from Georgia Tech when he got his bachelor's. And you know, in spite of all the times that all the other students would make fun of him because of his very strong accent, he really remained focused on that goal of studying, doing well, getting a good job. That was the dream, right? And he worked super hard, finding any and all odd jobs that he could possibly do that would allow him to pay for school, to stay in school, and squeezing whatever time he could find to study and get ahead. And it really did pay off. I mean, he did well in school, as I mentioned. And after graduating with his master's degree, he ended up taking a job with a company, Carrier Corporation, which produces and sells air conditioning and refrigeration units. And in that kind of true immigrant form, he stayed there for 35 years, over 35 years really, and ended up retiring there because he really was all about, I've achieved that goal of mine, having that stable, good job, and I am not going to rock the boat. He and my mom met and married in 1965, and my dad's job took our family to 5 different countries in Latin America, and that's how I was raised. I happened to be born in El Salvador when he and my mom were there, and my brother, and we just moved around from country to country, wherever carrier sent us, and then moved to the US when I was 14, and to Miami, and that was my introduction to the United States, was Miami at the age of 14. But that's how I grew up. I mean, I grew up with parents who know the value of education, parents who work extremely hard to achieve their goals, who are willing to take that leap of faith to pursue a better life. And I know that's something that all of us have in common. All of us here have that in common, whether it is our parents or grandparents who came to the US, or whether it is us ourselves who traveled that journey. It is something that is a common thread throughout the Latinx community in the US. And we've all faced language, cultural, financial challenges, and we know what it's like to come out ahead. So that's really why my role personally with BlackRock's Somos Latin Network is so important to me, because we all need a channel through which we can celebrate our achievements and celebrate the achievements of our family members who came before us. And we need a channel through which to lift up our fellow Latinx and colleagues and community members, and one through which we can educate and work with our allies. So needless to say, I'm a strong proponent of employee resource groups and really firmly believe that ERGs enrich the employee experience, they bring great value to all stakeholders, are really just a win-win for any company. Now, I know ALPFA thinks about the value of ERGs along the 4 Cs network or framework, which I'm going to apply here because I think it's really spot on and a really great way to dissect the value that the ERGs bring to the table. And those 4 Cs, as Edward mentioned before, stand for career, community, culture, and commerce. So you're going to hear more about those later on in our panel, but let me spend just a quick minute on each of these. So on the career front, the impact that an ERG can have on one's professional career is tremendous. So as we all know, I mean, so many of our opportunities come through networking and building relationships. And being part of an ERG that is based on a common thread like our Latinx culture is a great foundation for that networking. If you're early in your career and you're looking for more senior colleagues to whom you can turn to for advice and for mentorship, or you're more senior and you're looking for sharp young talent to nurture and maybe to recruit into your own group, ERGs are really an ideal place to make those connections. They also provide an outlet for those who want to get involved beyond their day-to-day work and kind of enrich their own experience within their companies. So they really give opportunities to those who want to showcase their skills to a broader audience. And you never know, honestly, when someone who you have impressed within your ERG ends up being your channel or your conduit to that next hot job within your company. So it's really a fantastic way to help expand your brand within your company. And I'll say, frankly, in our Somos Latin network at BlackRock, I have been thoroughly impressed with the quality of work that our analysts and our associates bring to the table. And you better believe that if I find an opportunity to work with them again or to champion them, I'm 100% going to do that. Now, turning over to community, for me, the community aspect really applies to both the community within the company, as well as the community of the offices or the cities in which we're based. And I have worked at places where ERGs were not yet present, and I can say that absence was really felt and it was really a void. You know, during those times when I worked in those places where they hadn't quite gotten to the point of having ERGs, those times when I did experience the subtle microaggressions that I know we have all faced, those times were really that much more challenging when I felt like I didn't have a friendly ear of an ERG colleague that could really understand my position and to whom I could really speak frankly. Having that sense of community internally within one's own company is so instrumental to helping employees of all backgrounds feel like they really belong. And then looking into the community from the other angle, the community of the cities in which we are based, an example of the value that we bring to Atlanta from the BlackRock side is is this, and this is something that I'm super proud of. So our ERGs at BlackRock, including Somos, have helped to identify multiple nonprofit organizations making a real difference in the community, especially last year in 2020, when there was this kind of racial reckoning that was going on across the country, and really maybe a better understanding or better grasp for what marginalized communities tend to face on a regular basis. And the way that BlackRock stepped up during that time through the BRGs and through other efforts was really a big area of pride for myself. BlackRock has provided organizations, nonprofit organizations, with grants, other types of financial support, certainly troops and troops of volunteers. And this is really the kind of activity that is enriching for our communities, but it's also immensely satisfying for our employees to take a part of. So turning over to the third C, which is culture. And I'm going to speak about BlackRock because it's what I know best right now, but BlackRock has a whole structure of ERGs, from ERGs that exist for each level of an employee's professional path, whether that is Analyst Alley or VP Village, to ERGs that highlight areas of interest, like financial inclusion or our green team. And of course, ERGs that celebrate and honor our employees' backgrounds, like BlackRock, Black Professional Network, or Somos Latin Network, of course. And without a doubt, all of these ERGs enrich our corporate culture. There is no doubt about that. Our office, like other BlackRock offices, our office in Atlanta, has employees who are immensely talented and immensely passionate about being involved. ERGs give us all a conduit for that involvement. So we have a way to channel that desire to be involved and to make a difference, and allow everyone to bring their best selves to work and their whole selves to work. But I'll say that the success of our ERGs is not only due to the engagement of our employees, which is tremendous, but it's really due to our firm's support for them. This comes in the shape of our senior executives who serve as sponsors for each ERG and allow us to have an elevated voice at all levels of the company. It comes in the shape of the financial support that ERGs are given to carry out our activities. And it comes in the shape of recognition that's given during performance reviews and how ERG involvement is considered when somebody's up for promotion. And that really helps to make official the importance that ERGs have in the value that we give to our firm. So really, ERGs at BlackRock are instrumental to our culture because our firm really recognizes their impact and thoroughly supports them. And for that, I consider myself very lucky. Now on the last C of commerce, I will say that participation in ERGs is really very much a part of our fabric because the principles by which BlackRock employees live really encourages this. So at BlackRock, we have a set of 5 principles that everybody tends to know off the top of their heads, and they really guide the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. And one of them is the We Are One BlackRock principle, which sets the need, and this is basically how this is written out and how we talk about One BlackRock, but it sets the need for a diverse workforce as being indispensable to our creativity and success. It is how we answer the biggest questions and we solve the toughest problems. And that wording is really coded into our One BlackRock principle. And it is the basis for, along with our other 5 principles, it's the basis for how we are reviewed and how we are evaluated for promotion, as I mentioned before. But why is this so important? And it is so important because having that diverse workforce really allows us to better understand the clients that we serve. And it helps us to understand the other entities that we partner with on behalf of our clients. Not only that, but it also allows us to recruit the best and the brightest, because simply put, people really want to work for companies where there are others like us. And being able to recruit the best and the brightest is absolutely key to our performance as a firm. So if you're working to make a case within your company for why ERGs should be present or why they should be valued, I really encourage you to build a case based on this 4 C's model, because it really is spot on and will really be able to allow you to drive the points home to your executives. So just to wrap up, because I think I'm going a little bit over time, my apologies on that, but it was interesting to me when I was doing a little bit of research on ERGs to learn that they started back in the 1960s at Xerox. And to see that over the past few decades since then, they have grown so much in popularity that today ERGs are found at over 90% of Fortune 500 companies, and that's according to a publication by Top MBA. But over 90%, that is staggering. So clearly, a lot of companies, certainly not just BlackRock, are understanding the value that ERGs bring to the table. So we are certainly in good company when it comes to that. Those companies, I will say, that are still debating whether to build employee resource groups or not, are missing out on talent. They're missing out on having truly rich corporate cultures. They're missing out on bringing their best to their communities. And they're missing out, honestly, on commercial opportunities and impacting the bottom line in a positive way. So I hope that I have struck an interest among you, among at least some of you, for what life is like at BlackRock. That honestly is one of my intents here. And I certainly hope that I was able to do that. If I have done that, please do visit our career site at careers.blackrock.com, because as I mentioned before, BlackRock in Atlanta is growing tremendously. We have grown tremendously and we're looking to grow more. So please do visit our career site. With that, I know that I'm again running out of time. My apologies on that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for participating in the leadership team. And thank you to all of ALPFA for inviting me to discuss this important topic. Edward, I'm going to turn it over back to you.
Thank you, Wendy. That's amazing. Kudos to your dad surviving Germany. Like, it's very cold up there, no language. I think he was the first Latino ever to be in Germany. But,
I think he's the first Bolivian, I'm sure.
Yeah, so wow, amazing. And just to, piggyback off of what you were saying about how key it is to have BRGs in your company, I think it also adds layers to a company. So definitely, as Wendy was saying, one BlackRock is about not just being all providing services, but having layers for your employees to have outlets to express themselves and to bring more creativity into the company. So thank you, Wendy, again. That was amazing. And hopefully we get to see more of you and hear more about any ventures you have going on with BlackRock or outside of BlackRock. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Great. Now I will introduce our next portion of the summit, which is our panel. So I will introduce Gabriel Vaca. Gabriel Vaca, thank you for coming and joining us, and I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much. And it was incredible, Wendy, your explanation on how you drove us from your immigrant roots to where you are today. And I believe a lot of us, and including me, have that background. And it's really startling how it has formed us. So my name is Gabriel Bach, and I'm the Executive Vice President of ALPFA in Corporate Development. And also I'm an alumni from UPS. And I also have a very, very big passion on ERGs, BRGs, ERGs. And we'll talk about why they're called that. But, when I was at UPS and we did not have ERGs, I came into a corporate crisis. My crisis was that I was in an all-American company, quote unquote, and I wanted to display who I was as a Latino, because I'm from Mexico City and I came as many immigrants with a couple suitcases, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur in the United States. And that's what I did. And eventually I had my own business and I went to work for corporate America, which is UPS. And in my corporate crisis, I said, well, I'm a Latino. How do I display that? How do I get my heritage out? And when we started and founded the Latino BRG, I mean, not only myself had that way to express this, but many, many other Latinos came out and I call them, they crawled out of their desk and started to display, and they started to work, and they started to evolution and volunteer. It was amazing. I was just startled. And I think Sue, which is part of UPS, will explain that. But that's really how important it was, and why, as a passionate person that I am, I was able to do my work, my everyday work, and I think with more emphasis, and be able to get my outlet through all the work which is the Latino BRG at UPS with Cassette. But anyway, I want to thank our panelists, and I'll introduce them and I'll let them speak also. Tomorrow, we're going to have some workshops, and I want to add some sponsors that help me actually and us on this, which is Cox Enterprises Vu Trio. He's the director for inclusion and diversity. Also, Atlanta Search Group, Lisa Clark, thank you. The Latin American Association, which a lot of BRGs in Atlanta help and volunteer. Santiago Marquez, I want to thank him for your sponsorship. And Treble Media Group, which is a branding company that also helped us. So with that, I'm going to introduce, and let's get started with this. I'm going to introduce Sue Schmidthofer, and I know how to say the last name. I learned how to say that. And Sue is the Global Director for Diversity and Equity and Inclusion for UPS. I also want to introduce Carmen Garcia from BlackRock, and she is the Director of Global Creative for Americas and also part of the Latinx, Somos Latinx for BlackRock, and Elizabeth Friedman, Senior Manager of Inclusion Diversity for Cox Enterprises. So thank you so much for being here. You could see their bios, I believe, Edouard, in one of the links that we have. I think he just posted it, if you have that. Number two, questions, and I'm going to leave open for questions too, because we want to have a dialogue all about this, of what Wendy positioned for us, the 4 C's and all that. But let me get started with the first question. And I want this to be, maybe not all my questions, but you have questions among yourself and you want to express something for the audience. But I want to talk about structure, Sue. And I know that that's a very difficult situation because we created our model under the 4C model, and there's many other structures, and they're fine too. We created ours because we thought there had to be some type of structure. So can you talk a little bit about the structure of that, how many we have, and stuff like that that will really help the audience regarding those pieces. So welcome, Sue.
Absolutely. Welcome. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you for having me. Great to be here and talk about our programs. And Gabe, you mentioned BRGs, ERGs, right? When UPS started, they weren't even called resource groups. It was Women's Leadership Development. And this year we're celebrating 15 years of that. And that really became our official first business resource group. And as we expanded and launched, we never really called them ERGs. We put the B in Business Resource Group for that reason, right? To use that connections model that we ultimately developed on UPS Connections, Business Connections, and Community Connections to really have that impact. You really want to get buy-in. Again, there's nothing wrong with calling it an ERG. That works for a lot of organizations. But for us, we really wanted to highlight that because there is value. There is value to a business. And if our employees are going to be working in BRGs on top of what they do in their everyday position, you have to make it worthwhile and show that business case. And so that was really important to us. So, and it really led to such a great expansion of what we call the grassroots program, right? We don't dictate how many chapters we have, what types we have. We let our business units, our people across the globe tell us what they need. So that's evolved into, we have 11 different types of BRGs, 180 plus chapters in 36 different countries across the globe. So that's incredible growth that we've seen in 15 years, and we're not done, right? And so I think the structure and a model and really having clearly identified items for individuals to work on to help develop themselves, help the company grow, and help our community really show that business case and value, and really has led to tremendous growth. And so what we're doing now, because we have such a mature model, is going through kind of a refresh and saying, what's in next? What are those next chapters? And how do we really even fully capitalize on all the innovative ideas and the passion and enthusiasm our BRG members have?
Thank you, Sue. Very, very good. I wanted to have another questions about the impact. And I know we talked a little bit about impact, and I think we should talk about it and repeat it because we have different types of impact. Impact for those 4 C's, careers, community, commerce, and culture, as well as impact to the HR department, impact for diversity. I mean, impact to the employees, to the middle management. There's so many impacts. So can Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit about that and how you see that going, and what is the impact? And I think the second piece, which we will talk a little bit more tomorrow, measurement. No, so go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so, and again, thank you all so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. So the impact of our ERGs, I think, is quite impactful at Cox. We truly value ID&E, and we really champion inclusion, and we really want to make sure that our company reflects the diverse communities that we serve. So our ERGs play a really important role in making sure that we can help achieve and continue to work on that mission that we have at Cox. So, I think impact has been really interesting over the past year and a half that we've been living in this crazy world. There has been so much going on, and I think I've seen the impact in a different way this past year. Our ERGs have not served just to help advance the business and to create that community for our employees, but they've really done an amazing job of making sure that as we are working from home, those emotions that we are feeling outside of work are going to be carried into our workplace more than ever. So seeing the way that our Black African American ERG has come together to create areas where people can share stories and their experiences after the murder of George Floyd has been amazing. The Lotus ERG, which is our Asian and Pacific Islander ERG, just happened to be launched May of 2020, just as the height of xenophobia and violence against the Asian community has risen to an all-time high. And they've created an environment where people can share stories and finally open up about things that have happened in their past or things that they're experiencing right now. And even just as recently as a few weeks ago, our Salute ERG, which is for our veterans, created an open forum for employees to come and share about what happened in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, we had 13 soldiers who were killed with that attack. So creating that environment where our employees can take a break and to reflect on what's happened in their life and what they're feeling outside and bringing it into the workplace has really shown that emotional and community impact that we haven't seen. So our ERGs are very powerful, and that grassroots efforts that Sue mentioned is also applicable at Cox, and it's really made a strong and customized impact for our ERG groups.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Elizabeth. I think this leadership summit, which we include the ERGs, and tomorrow is going to be especially important, is there's a lot of panels and stuff that we talk about with ERGs and BRGs, but how do people do all that work? How do they do it? And how do they measure it? Because the biggest thing is measurement. You talk about the Floyd murders, you talk about everything happening, and you're adapting to the culture around your environment, as well as you have the corporation. So you have to start meeting both and how they relate to each other, but how do you measure it? Because when those reports come, and Sue and you and others have to come and report to HR and diversity inclusion, what have they done? You could say, yeah, I filled a room with 100 people, but what happened next after filling out the room with 100 people? So my question to Carmen is, how do you actually measure this, and how do you report? Because I know that you're in marketing, I understand that, but how do you relate with Wendy and others in your organization in BlackRock to get that measurement? Because they want bottom line stuff, They maybe do. Sue, you have an answer to that too, but I want to let Carmen talk a little bit about that.
Well, again, Gabrielle, thank you so much for having me today. And like everybody said, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. I am a proud Dominican. So happy to be joining you all today. So when you talk about measurement, we work at BlackRock. BlackRock, if you think it's all about numbers, we have to measure absolutely everything we do, which is great, because we, Somos, which is the ERG that Wendy and I lead, is fairly young. It's only been 3 years around. We only have 4 chapters in this global company. Wendy and I started the chapter in Atlanta. She started at September 30th. I started September 19th. So she and I really started at BlackRock together. And, the joint backgrounds, our joint culture brought us together. right away. And we decided, this is something we have to do for Atlanta. This was important for us. How do we measure? We measure how much, of course, the normal measurements are how many people are part of the ERG, who are our allies. The allyship is so important, right? Who are the people that are joining us on this journey that we're on? So who are our allies? The events we're doing and the impact they're producing. So if I do an event, let's say with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, what's the impact I'm doing there? But most importantly, and I know this is something that's very much in the heart for Wendy and myself, is the hiring. BlackRock has a goal of representing the city, right? And the representation of the city includes all the different numbers and diversity. And for us, we take it to heart the hiring of these Latino leaders and these Latinos, these young professionals, right? So it's really important that gets measured as well. So there's a couple different ways that we're measuring, but some of those include, hiring, include events, include leadership development as well. Who are those leaders that are getting promoted, and what are we doing to help them? So a bunch of different ways that we're doing that.
Yeah,
and I don't know, Sue, if you want me to add.
Yeah. Let Sue. I want to hear from Sue because she managed over 100 chapters and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So I'm sure they're asking a lot of questions. What is all these thousands of people doing?
Right. Now, measurement, that is the struggle, right? In a lot of the DEI efforts, much less just in resource groups, and actually looking at formalizing and kind of through our whole refresh of our program, looking at what kind of scorecard and utilizing some new technology, right? And seeing, sharing the best practices as Carmen did. She gave a lot of great answers on some of the things that are tracking, but it is tough. And I think that some of the things are easier than the others. For us, we have a great neighbor to neighbor program, right? Community is really important at UPS. It's one of our core values. So we really, support and encourage people to volunteer in community. And we have a neighbor to neighbor platform where you can individually log your hours or your BRG and set events. So that's really one good way of measuring, what's your impact on your community, giving back hours into that. And that does translate into dollars because it does help community organizations from our time giving back into those communities. Gabe knows this one personally from his work at UPS sales leads, right? We can measure when we have encouraged our BRG members to submit new leads for new business. It helps create into growth. So how many people submitted leads, what converted into a true sales lead, how many new packages did that gain for UPS? So that's another good one that you can measure. Retention is tough, right? How can you say whether or not someone was part of a resource group and they stayed or not stayed? But it is important to, so you can take a look and say, are we seeing different turnover from different groups? Just like Gabe, you mentioned people just attending an event. Just if you have 100 people show, that's great, but should it have, if it's not a good event and people didn't feel it was value added, right? So using things like a net promoter score and surveying your internal attendees and how they rate the effectiveness of that event is something that you can measure people on. Carmen mentioned development opportunities, right? Who's getting selected to attend different executive development opportunities, who's getting promoted, who's getting job rotations and movement. You can measure mentoring, how many people you've gone through mentoring programs. So there are things, sometimes it becomes, right, 100 things on there, but not all of them you can measure and measure effectively. So we're trying to look at, what are those top maybe 5 things that would be important for us to show to our leadership that these are really truly things that make an impact on our business, and look at the great work that the BRGs are doing from it.
Thank you. That does, like UPS calls it, where the rubber meets the road with our package cars. That's exactly the reason why, because you could go doing events all day, but you don't have measurement, and how do you create that scorecard, and how do you create the drive and the motivation and the reward of everything? Elizabeth, question for you is, most of these BRGs are based on stats that I have, and maybe you have different ones at Cox, is their next gen millennials, 21 or whatever to 35 years old or something like that, and because they're active. So the question is, why do you have so many of that percentage? And the second question to that, the follow-up is, I remember when I was at UPS, it was hard to get senior management or middle management to get involved with these BRGs. It was not easy. So talk us a little bit about those two things.
Yeah, so I think that the ERGs or BRGs are seen as a really great development opportunity. And I think that a bit of the culture is when someone's recently graduated from college, there's a lot of opportunities to get involved, clubs, organizations. And I think as people look for roles, they're looking for companies that also have those same type of values where they can get involved and work on things that they're passionate about outside of just what they're hired to do. So I think that, the millennials and Gen Z do look for a lot of those opportunities where they can get involved outside of their day-to-day job. But to your second question about leadership involvement, at Cox, we're really lucky that from our president to our C-suite down, they really truly believe in inclusion, diversity, and equity and the value that our ERGs bring. So seeing them as our executive sponsors, advisors, play a huge role in the success of our ERGs. They not only serve as mentors, but they can help provide, strategies about where the company is going and what they hope to see. And they really push to understand what is happening at all employee levels within that community to help really champion that kind of creativity to create events or communications that will bring value to our employee base and to our allies. So it's kind of it's kind of twofold. They go together. We need that passion and that drive to want to get involved, but we need also that that support from our leaders to really push and show that they value the time that you are taking outside of your day-to-day job to put towards ID&E to make things happen. So it's really a harmonized partnership to make things successful.
Yeah, it is difficult because I remember, we try to pull in more middle to senior management, and it was not easy. It was really not easy unless we highlighted them or they were speaker. Yes, they would come, but at the end, we wanted them to do the same work. We wanted them to go to events and volunteer to the Latin American Association, for example, to give out food or vaccine stuff. So Carmen, what's your experience on that? I know you're fairly young, 3 years, but go ahead, explain a little bit.
So I could tell you, yeah. I know that at BlackRock, which I think is, I come from the marketing world where it was in the agency world, everybody did everything. But here, working in a more corporate environment, I can tell you that all of our ERGs at BlackRock have a GEC sponsor, right? So these people already you have to have a GEC sponsor to be able even to form an ERG at BlackRock, which I think is great because this person now is intricately related, right, into the development of the ERG. We also have leaders of the ERG, right? So you have the GSC sponsor, then you have senior leaders, then you have an EXCO, which manages the entire, then you have an operating committee, and then each chapter has its own like EXCO, if you would call it that. So already, you have a line of communication where you're getting senior leaders involved into it all the time. We're holding an event coming up next week where we've pulled in managing directors, because one of the things that we want to do is we want to make the younger generation know that, you can do this too. The senior leaders are as involved as you are. So, bringing them in, having them participate. And I found that they're very willing. In my 2 years here at BlackRock, we've called on a couple different senior managing directors or managing directors, and they've all given us their time. Frank Cooper, who is the head of Somos, for our executive sponsor for Somos, he is, he's the one sending the emails. It might be written by somebody, it doesn't matter, but he is committed to it. And that commitment shows, and I think it translates into everybody in the network.
Thank you. One last question before we have some questions from the audience, but I'm going to just ask one last question, which it is a difficult question, and I know it depends on each company, but funding for BRGs and BRGs. Sue, can you address that? Sorry to put you on the spot. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Thanks, partner. No, funding, it's a challenge. We were talking with our team about funding again this morning. You don't, first of all, you can do a lot without funding, right? And that we've never let that stop us organizationally from doing a lot of the different things that we've tried to drive with our efforts. That being said, a little bit of funding, can go a long way, and it's important to have. And so what we are doing to go into next year is really try to centralize that. In the past, all of our business units, our regions, our districts, really had to put it into their own budget and take a look at that. Well, one district might do a really good job of letting their people do a lot of different things and having a great success. Some other district might not be able to provide the funding, right? And so we really wanted to make sure that that support for those dollars was approved by our senior leadership. So our entire C-suite, what we call our executive leadership team, has all agreed on a new funding level. And so we're working with our controllers, our finance and accounting department to say, we need to go into 2022 and have set budgets. We're basing it on how many current chapters we have. And as new ones come on, they'll get prorated amounts during the year. I'd say for any company starting them up, getting things going, try to secure that first. When you're trying to do it after the fact, it becomes really difficult. But I think it's really important to justify the spend, right? It isn't about just giving people $5,000, $10,000 a year and saying, go have at it. You also have to show the business case of what you're going to use it for and why, and what that return on that investment will be. One of the other things that we're trying to do is more economies of scale, right? So especially at our corporate office where we've got some means to collaborate more or have some access to those senior leaders, instead of each group, if Corsair wants to put on their own event and then our Asian BRG wants to do something and our Veterans BRG wants to do something, if it's all a leadership event, let's pool efforts, right? And do it together. And then that way you bring in more allies and advocates and can get more bang for the buck of it. So we really work strategically. We, also partner up with a lot of our ERG and BRG leaders at other companies to say, hey, we don't have to pay a guest speaker. Now I know Elizabeth and I can just bring her into one of my events, right? And Carmen can come to the next event after that. So creative financing is really good, but working between your HR teams and your finance departments and trying to shore that up, even for us and how long we've been doing this, it is definitely not easy, but stay persistent with it. And again, there's a lot of great things you can do for low budget too.
Great answer. Thank you, Sue. And sorry to put you on the spot on that one.
All good.
I have a question from Elizabeth to you about starting a BRG at UPS. Who's the appropriate contact for that?
Oh, great. Well, we have a new leader running our BRGs, Jamie Greger. Actually, she came out of our marketing group. So Jamie was our WLD corporate chair and just moving over into the group. And so she is the great point of contact for all things BRGs. We have her, Nina Prasad, as one of our specialists, but a lot of great resources. We definitely new groups that form. We like to, we're working on a whole toolkit and an interactive playbook so that BRG leaders have a place to go to and we can connect them with the other chapters. I know, Gabe, you started that with the Corsair group here is, having oversight of all the different chapters so people don't have to feel like they're going at it alone and you can help them all get started.
Okay. Edward, do we have any questions from the audience? I believe there was a few. I'm not sure if you have where it is or if they're not, I would just encourage some comments from Carmen.
There is one question.
You?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question is from Elizabeth Ibarra. Oh, and
I think I addressed that one.
Oh, that one. Okay, great.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's all the
Okay,
question.
so let me just, Carmen, Elizabeth, Sue, do you guys have anything to add before I turn it over to Felipe? Anything you want to mention that was not mentioned that you would like? Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, if you don't mind, one of the things, when you were talking, Gabe, it reminded me of the support, and a lot of Carmen and Elizabeth alluded to that senior level support and leadership, and how that's changed. You know, Juan Perez, who for several years, even before he was on our C-suite, when I first came into the role in the diversity space, was an executive advisor for the Hispanic Latino BRG, and then continued into that role at the C-suite level, really helped elevate the platform and continue to do so. One of the things that, you know, that we've changed is now Juan is now the executive sponsor for our African-American BRG, and Philippe Gilbert, who is not, has become the executive sponsor. So, you know, making sure you cross-pollinate the different groups and have different people be senior leader allies and advocates is really important. And I know the group recently, when you talk about leadership from the top, our group of Chris Eric was able to have Carol Tomei, our CEO, be on one of their most recent calls, right? I mean, you can't get further to the top than that organization. So kudos and bravo, I should say, to all of the leaders who are doing things like that. To, you know, we really, you have to have this support and leadership from the top. And when you have your CEO, your C-suite supporting those efforts, and just again, that not just trying to have them only be a speaker, but participating, really being active with it, it really shows our employees how important it is. And it is a huge thing for job seekers coming into the two companies. It's one thing they're looking at for sure.
Thank you. Carmen, Elizabeth, before we
Yes,
turn it over.
thank you, Gabrielle. One thing I will say to all the job seekers, get involved. You know, get involved. All of us have passions, and I would say sign up. It just opens up a wealth of opportunities, you know, on career development, events, meeting people, just your development in a firm goes a long way by just being involved. It has been great for me. It has been, well, like Wendy said earlier, you know, it's something we are really passionate about. And it's a way to get the land culture or any other reason for the BRG's existence out there. So what I would say is get involved.
Thank you. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, Carmen took exactly what I was going to say. If you have an ERG that you're at your company that you're passionate about, please get involved. You don't need to be of that demographic as well. Like Sue mentioned, that allyship is so important. So please feel free to get involved. I really encourage it. It's a really great development opportunity for you to build your brand. And I think I really credit my involvement to help me get to where I am today. So yeah, I love being a part of the ERGs, the work that they do, and the community that you build.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth Friedman. Thank you, Carmen Garcia. Thank you, Sue Smilakoffer, for your expertise, explanations, and I'm glad we got where the rubber meets the road. With that, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over now to Edouard and Felipe, our president of ALPFA. So go ahead, take it on from there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Edward, for great job. And thank you, our panelists, for coming today. This has been so informative, and hopefully all the attendees was able to take something from it. And hopefully we get to see all of them tomorrow. So we go to the next slide. So here's the agenda for tomorrow. We have amazing BRGs going to be sharing the 4C model, and they're going to be talking about careers, community, culture, and commerce. So I hope to see you guys tomorrow and join us and take advantage of this great opportunity to hear from these great BRGs here in Atlanta. Next one. Again, thanks again for all our sponsors. Thanks to them, we're able to do this kind of events, and hopefully we'll continue our events coming up. Yep, next. So we have just to let you guys know, we do have a tech talk coming up in October, and as well as the Women's of ALPFA, and hopefully, if the numbers we covered are get better, we'll have the picnic. Otherwise, we'll have to push it for next year. But our goal is to have our tech talk. This year, we're going to talk about analytics. So we're going to have a lot of great leaders talking about analytics. And the Women's of Alpha this year is about equity, inclusion, and justice. So we'll have great speakers about that. Okay, so with that, don't forget to follow us on social media. Don't forget to post. We're gonna have random winners. We'll announce them over the weekend, and we'll be sending a message who won by posting about our event. Again, any questions? My email is there. And thank you again, Edward, Sue, and Wendy, and as well, Elizabeth. Thank you very much, Carmen, as well. Gabriel, awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll hopefully see you guys tomorrow. Thank you again.